I have spent the better part of my life studying men who built empires from nothing, men who began with no money, no name, no education, and yet walked out of obscurity into the pages of history. And I will tell you something I discovered, something I did not expect to find when I first set out on that long road of inquiry. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve, but only when the man behind the mind learns to walk the same path day after day without losing his nerve. I sat across from Andrew Carnegie in a room that smelled of old leather and quiet ambition. I sat with Edison in a workshop where the air itself seemed to hum with unfinished ideas. I watched Henry Ford speak with the calm certainty of a man who had wrestled with failure and refused to release it until it blessed him. And in every one of these men, I found the same hidden current beneath their genius. It was not luck. It was not talent alone. It was not even what most people call willpower. It was something quieter, deeper, almost invisible to the untrained eye. It was consistency, the unbroken thread that wove their days into a destiny. Now, you may be sitting wherever you are, listening to my voice, and asking yourself a question I have heard 1,000 times in 1,000 different forms. Why is consistency so difficult? Why does the will of a man rise like a flame in the morning and collapse like ash by evening? Why do we begin with such certainty, only to wander from our path within weeks, sometimes within days? I have asked these questions myself. I have watched brilliant men abandon brilliant futures. I have watched ordinary men with no special gifts build extraordinary lives simply because they refused to stop walking when the road grew steep. Listen carefully, because what I am about to tell you is the result of a lifetime of observation, and it is not what you have been told. Consistency is not difficult because you are weak. Consistency is difficult because you have not yet understood what it actually is. The world has lied to you about consistency. The world has told you that consistency is a matter of grinding teeth, of clenched fists, of pushing yourself forward through sheer pressure of the will. The world has made consistency sound like a punishment, a burden, a chain you fasten around your own ankle each morning. And so naturally, you resist it. The body resists punishment. The mind resists pressure. The soul resists chains. No man can sustain for long what feels like a sentence imposed upon him from above. But the most surprising part comes only now. The men I studied did not experience consistency as punishment. They experienced it as a homecoming. They experienced it as the natural rhythm of a man who had remembered who he was. They did not drag themselves toward their work each morning. They were drawn to it the way water is drawn down a mountain, the way iron is drawn to a magnet. And the secret of that draw and the hidden engine beneath their unwavering rhythm was something I came to call the definite major purpose. I want you to consider this carefully. A man without a definite major purpose is like a ship without a rudder, tossed by every current, blown by every wind. He decides one morning that he will become disciplined, and by afternoon he has forgotten why. He sets a goal on Monday and abandons it by Thursday, not because he is lazy, but because nothing within him is pulling him forward. He has tried to enforce consistency from the outside, when in truth, consistency is born from the inside. It is not imposed upon a man. It rises out of him. Edison did not need to force himself into his laboratory. He could not stay away from it. He failed 10,000 times in his search for the incandescent light. And when a young reporter once asked him how he endured 10,000 failures, he looked at the boy with that quiet, amused fire in his eyes and said that he had not failed 10,000 times. He had simply found 10,000 ways that would not work. Do you see what I'm pointing to? The man who has not found his definite major purpose counts every setback as a wound. The man who has found it counts every setback as information. One bleeds, the other learns. And the difference between them is not character, it is direction. Here begins the darkest game of the subconscious mind, and I want you to follow me carefully through it, because this is where most men lose themselves. When you set a goal without first locating your definite major purpose, you are essentially asking the surface of your mind to do work that only the depths of your mind can do. The conscious will is a small thing. It is a thin layer at the top of a vast ocean. It can hold a decision for a few hours, perhaps a few days. But the subconscious mind, that great hidden sea beneath your awareness, that is the place where consistency is forged. And the subconscious mind does not respond to commands. It responds to convictions. It does not obey what you decide. It obeys what you believe. This is why a man can decide to change his life on the 1st of January and find himself, by the 1st of February, exactly where he was before. The decision was made on the surface. The conviction beneath the surface had not changed at all. I watched this pattern in countless men, and I watched the few who broke free from it. The ones who broke free did one thing the others did not. They stopped trying to discipline themselves into a new life. They began instead to plant a seed in the soil of the subconscious, and they tended that seed with the patience of a gardener, not the violence of a soldier. They used what I came to call autosuggestion. They spoke to their inner self the way a wise father speaks to a beloved son. They repeated with feeling and with faith the vision of the man they intended to become. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the subconscious accepted this new picture as truth. Once that picture was accepted, consistency was no longer a matter of force. It was a matter of expression. The man simply began to act naturally in accordance with what he now believed himself to be. Here, I must pause and tell you something that will sound strange at first. Consistency is not the cause of success. Consistency is the symptom of belief. Read those words again, because I have watched men weep when they finally understood them. You have been trying to produce consistency as if it were the engine, but consistency is not the engine. Consistency is the smoke from the fire. Belief is the fire. When the fire is real, the smoke rises on its own. You do not need to push the smoke into the sky. You simply need to keep the fire burning. And what is the fire? The fire is the union of three things: desire, faith, and a definite plan. Desire alone is not enough, for the world is full of dreamers who burn brightly for an evening and grow cold by morning. Faith alone is not enough, for the world is full of believers who never put their hand to the plow. A plan alone is not enough, for the world is full of strategists with no soul behind their strategies. But when these three meet, a desire that has become an obsession, a faith that has become a conviction, and a plan that has become a discipline, then a man becomes consistent without effort. He becomes consistent the way the sun is consistent. He rises each day because rising is now his nature. What Hill said about this subject is deeply unsettling, and I want you to understand why. I came to believe after many years of study that the man who struggles with consistency is not a weak man. He is a man whose desire has not yet matured into obsession. He is a man whose faith has not yet hardened into conviction. He is a man whose plan has not yet descended from the head into the hands. And the reason is almost always the same. He has not given his goal enough time alone with his mind. He has not sat with it in the silence. He has not turned it over and over in his thoughts until it has become part of the very texture of his soul. He has scattered his attention across 100 small ambitions, and so no single ambition has ever become large enough to command him. You see, the mind is a field. You may plant 100 seeds in it, but if you plant them all at once and tend none of them, you will harvest weeds. The men I studied planted few seeds, sometimes only one. And they tended that one seed with such care, such concentration, such devotion, that it grew into a tree large enough to shade an entire generation. This is the law of concentration, and consistency is its child. Let me give you a picture you will not soon forget. Picture a man standing at the edge of a forest with an axe in his hand. He intends to cut down a great oak. He swings once with all his strength, and the blade bites into the wood. He swings again in the same place, and the cut deepens. He swings a third time, a fourth, a fifth, and slowly, slowly the tree begins to lean. Now imagine instead that this man, after 5 swings, decides to walk 20 paces away and try a different tree. He swings 5 times there, then moves again. He spends the entire day swinging at trees, and by sunset, not a single one has fallen. His arms are tired. His spirit is exhausted. He returns home convinced that he is not strong enough to be a woodsman. But the truth is that he was strong enough. He simply never stayed long enough in one place for his strength to do its work. This is the picture of the modern man. He swings at 100 trees and fells none. He begins 100 ventures and finishes none. He starts 100 disciplines and sustains none. And then, in the quiet of the night, he wonders why his life feels so scattered, so thin, so unfinished. The answer is not that he lacks ability. The answer is that he has never learned to stay. Consistency is, in the end, the art of staying. It is the willingness to keep swinging at the same tree until it falls. The detail most people overlook is hidden right here, and I want you to listen with all your attention. In the age in which you are now living, an age of endless distraction and infinite stimulation, the art of staying has become the rarest and most valuable art a man can possess. When I walked the streets of America in my younger years, a man who could focus for an hour was an ordinary man. Today, a man who can focus for an hour is becoming a remarkable man. The world has placed 1,000 small magicians in your pocket, each one whispering for your attention, each one offering you a tiny pleasure in exchange for a fragment of your mind. And so the modern man finds himself in a strange position. He has more tools, more information, more opportunity than any generation before him. And yet he cannot finish what he begins. He has lost the compass of his inner purpose, but not the need for it. I want you to understand the depth of what I am saying. The forces working against your consistency today are not the same forces that worked against the men of my time. In my time, a man who wished to abandon his purpose had to make a real effort to do so. He had to leave his desk, walk into the street, and find a tavern. Today, the tavern is in your hand. The distraction is at your fingertip. The escape from your purpose is one breath away every minute of every hour. And so consistency in your age is not merely a virtue, it is a quiet rebellion. It is the act of a man who has decided that his attention is not for sale. Now, I will tell you something that may surprise you. I do not believe the great achievers of history were more disciplined than the men of today. I believe they were more protected. They were protected by silence. They were protected by long hours alone with their thoughts. They were protected by the absence of 10,000 voices pulling at their minds. The man who would be consistent in the modern world must reclaim that silence by his own hand. He must build a fortress of solitude around his definite major purpose, and he must defend that fortress as a king defends his throne. For if he does not, the world will pour in and drown the seed before it can take root. The real turning point begins here, and I want you to take this part to heart. I came to see that consistency is not a single act. Consistency is a relationship. It is the relationship between you and your future self. Each day, when you keep your word to your purpose, you strengthen that relationship. Each day, when you break your word to your purpose, you weaken it. Over time, this relationship becomes either a bond of trust or a wound of betrayal. Most men do not realize that they are slowly, day by day, teaching their own subconscious whether they can be trusted. The man who breaks his word to himself again and again is not merely failing to reach his goal. He is training his own mind not to believe him. And once the mind no longer believes the man, no goal can ever be reached, because every promise he makes to himself is dismissed before it leaves his lips. This is the hidden tragedy of the inconsistent life. It is not the failure of any single goal. It is the slow erosion of self-trust. And self-trust, I came to believe, is the true currency of all achievement. A man who trusts himself can move mountains because every promise he makes carries the full weight of his being. A man who does not trust himself cannot move a pebble because his own mind whispers, even as he sets out, that he will not finish. So how does a man rebuild this trust? How does he repair the bond he has broken so many times? He begins small. He begins so small that failure becomes nearly impossible. He makes a promise to himself that he knows he can keep, and he keeps it. Then he makes another, then another. He does not try in the beginning to transform his entire life. He tries only to prove to himself in small and quiet ways that his word still means something. This is the foundation. Without this foundation, no great structure can be built. With this foundation, any structure becomes possible. I have watched men do this. I have watched them begin with something as simple as making their bed each morning, or rising at the same hour each day, or writing one page in a journal each evening. And these men who once thought themselves incapable of consistency slowly discovered that they were capable of far more than they had imagined. The small promise, kept faithfully, became the seed of the great life. What the lives of great achievers have been trying to tell us for centuries is something that the modern world has forgotten. Greatness is not a sudden ascent. Greatness is the accumulation of small loyalties to a single vision over a long period of time. Carnegie did not become Carnegie in a year. Edison did not become Edison in a season. Lincoln did not become Lincoln in a single campaign. These men were forged by decades of returning again and again to the same fire. They were not spectacular men in any single moment. They were ordinary men who became spectacular through the unbroken repetition of an ordinary commitment. And this, I believe, is the great secret that the modern age has buried beneath its noise. The miraculous life is built from unmiraculous days. The extraordinary man is the ordinary man who refused to quit. Now, I want to speak to you about a paradox that lies at the very heart of consistency, and I ask you to sit with it carefully because it will change the way you see your own struggle. The paradox is this: the men who appeared most consistent were not, in fact, men who never wavered. They were men who returned. They wavered as all men waver. They fell as all men fall. They had days of weakness, days of doubt, days when the fire grew dim and the path seemed long. But they returned. They did not interpret a single failure as the end of the road. They interpreted it as a pause in the journey. And this distinction, if this small, almost invisible distinction, is the difference between the man who arrives and the man who does not. You have been told that consistency means never breaking your streak. I am telling you that consistency means never abandoning your direction. There is a vast difference between the two. A man who breaks his streak but continues walking is still consistent in the deepest sense because his face is still turned toward the mountain. A man who maintains his streak but loses his vision has become a slave to his own performance, and he will collapse the moment the streak is broken. True consistency is not about the unbroken line. It is about the unwavering aim. Here is the light in the struggle, and I want you to feel it. Every man who has ever achieved anything of value has had moments when he wanted to quit. I have spoken with these men. I have looked into their eyes. I have asked them about the dark hours, and not one of them denied that the dark hours existed. Carnegie had them. Edison had them. Ford had them. The difference between these men and the men who never arrived was not that the great ones did not feel the urge to quit. The difference was that they did not obey it. They felt it, they acknowledged it, and they kept walking. They came to understand something that most men never learn, that the urge to quit is not a sign that you should quit. It is a sign that you are close to a breakthrough. The mind, faced with the imminent expansion of its limits, panics. It throws up every objection it can find. It whispers that the goal is not worth the cost, that the road is too long, that you were not made for such things. And the man who has trained himself in the laws of success learns to recognize this voice for what it is. It is not the voice of wisdom. It is the voice of the old self, dying. And the death of the old self is the price of the new life. Listen to me carefully now, for I am going to give you a truth that will take years to fully digest, but moments to remember. The reason consistency seems so difficult is that you are still trying to be two men at once. You are trying to be the man you have been and the man you wish to become in the same body at the same time. This cannot be done. The old man and the new man cannot share a single life. One must die so that the other may live. And every act of consistency, every kept promise to your purpose, is a small death of the old self and a small birth of the new. This is why consistency feels so heavy at first. You are not merely changing your habits. You are dying to who you were. And the part of you that does not wish to die, the part that is comfortable in its old shape, will resist with every weapon it has. It will tell you that you are tired. It will tell you that one day off will not matter. It will tell you that you can always begin again tomorrow. These voices are not your enemies. They are simply the cries of the old self as it loosens its grip. Let them speak. Do not argue with them. Simply continue walking. I have come to believe that this is the deepest meaning of consistency. It is the long, patient work of becoming someone you have not yet been. It is not a technique, it is a transformation. And no transformation has ever been swift or easy or comfortable. Every great transformation in nature requires darkness. The seed transforms in the darkness of the soil. The child transforms in the darkness of the womb. The butterfly transforms in the darkness of the cocoon. And the man who would transform himself must also enter his own darkness, the darkness of unrewarded effort, of unseen labor, of long days when nothing seems to be happening on the surface, even as everything is being rearranged beneath. The man who can endure this darkness without despair is the man who will one day emerge into the light he has been seeking. What I am describing to you is not motivation. Motivation is a thin and shallow thing. Motivation comes and goes with the weather of the mind. What I'm describing to you is something deeper and stronger. I'm describing the union of your conscious will with your subconscious belief, held steady by a definite major purpose, supported by a mastermind of like-minded souls, fed by autosuggestion, and tempered by the quiet faith that what you are building is real, even when you cannot yet see it. When these elements come together within a man, consistency is no longer a struggle. It becomes a way of being. He does not have to push himself toward his work. His work pulls him. He does not have to remind himself of his purpose. His purpose lives in him, breathes in him, walks with him through every hour of his day. I want you to understand that this state is not reserved for great men. It is available to any man or woman who is willing to do the inner work. The great men were not born into this state. They cultivated it, and what one human being has cultivated, another human being can also cultivate, given the same patience, the same faith, the same willingness to descend into the depths of one's own mind and rearrange the furniture of one's own soul. Now, as I draw near the end of what I wish to say to you, I want to leave you with a few quiet thoughts to carry with you into the days ahead. Consistency is not a battle you win once. It is a relationship you tend forever. There will be days when you walk strongly and days when you stumble. There will be seasons of clarity and seasons of fog. There will be moments when your purpose burns so brightly within you that you cannot imagine ever losing it, and moments when it grows so faint that you must search for it like a lamp in a deep mine. This is the way of all real journeys. Do not be ashamed of the dim seasons. They are not signs of failure. They are the pauses between the notes of a great music. The music would not be music without them. Do not measure your consistency by perfection. Measure it by return. How quickly do you return to your path after a stumble? How tenderly do you treat yourself when you fall? How firmly do you remember in the morning the man you intend to become? These are the true measures. The streak is a small thing. The return is everything. And finally, I want to leave you with a question, because I have always believed that the right question planted in the right soil will grow into the right life. When was the last time you sat in silence and truly listened to the voice of your definite major purpose? When was the last time you closed the doors of the world, sat alone with your own soul, and asked it what it was here to do? For somewhere within you, beneath the noise of the day and the weight of your habits, there is a quiet voice that has been waiting patiently for you to listen. That voice knows what you are here to build. It knows the man you are becoming. It has known, perhaps, since before you were born. And every act of consistency is, in the end, an act of obedience to that voice. A small daily yes spoken into the ear of the future. A small daily promise that you will not abandon the man you were sent here to be. The world will tell you that consistency is hard. I have told you tonight that consistency is simply the natural rhythm of a man who has remembered who he is. Remember who you are. The rest will follow. And now, in the quiet that follows my voice, I leave you to your own thoughts. May they be deep. May they be honest. And may they lead you step by faithful step to the life that has been waiting for you all along.